Well, hi there. So in this video, we're going to take a look at module 63, which is the third module of the Monopoly modules in your textbook. So just so you remember, there's 61, 62, 63, and 77. And I think I already have two older videos for 61 and 62. I'm going to go through 63 and 77 in the next video as well with 63. This is the kind of reformatted version of what these homework questions look like. So some of them are going to have these. They're the same types of questions, though, that you have in your textbook. So for the check your understanding questions, first it says true or false, explain your answer. And these are all going to be about price discrimination because that's what module 63 is about. A single price monopolist sells to some customers that would not find the product affordable if purchasing from a price discriminating monopolist. And a way to think about that is to think about like the different ranges that actually these monopolists end up with. And you have kind of the single price monopolist where they have a separated demand and marginal revenue, and then they have a price discriminating monopolist where they're the same values. And if we have an upward sloping marginal cost curve, we know that they kind of charge a whole range of prices, right? All in between where this MR equals MC point in the very top of the demand curve. Whereas this monopolist ends up charging this very high price all the way up here to all of their customers. So they end up charging a higher price, actually. The single price sells to some customers that would not find the product affordable. Well, that's actually the opposite. This is false. And it's because the opposite is true, that actually the price discriminator does so. If you kind of look at it, these two graphs that we've drawn, there's these customers in between here on this demand curve where actually that price would have been, and all the way down here, these customers are actually going to pay a lower price than the single price monopolist charges. A price discriminating monopolist creates more inefficiency than a single price monopolist because it captures more of the consumer surplus. Well, that's not like this part is true. Like, yes, it does, true. But that's not why. It actually has less inefficiency. And it's not because, again, it's not because that this is true. This element of the statement, that is to say, it captures more of the economic surplus, is a true statement that price discriminators don't allow for any consumer surplus. But we would actually say this is, again, false because the price discriminating monopolist actually has no inefficiency. And we learned that actually as we kind of work through those, that they have no deadweight loss. It's just that they capture all of the consumer surplus in the process. Third, under price discrimination, a customer with highly elastic demand will pay a lower price than a customer with inelastic demand. There should be an H right there. And that's just not true as well. Under price discrimination, a customer with highly elastic demand, well, those are the people up here on the demand curve. Way up here, they're going to pay actually the higher price, whereas the people, as you move down a demand curve, it gets more inelastic. And so those people end up paying actually lower prices. False. Again, the opposite is true. The opposite is true. The people on the high end of the demand curve end up paying the higher end of prices, and they have higher elasticity. Which of the following are cases of price discrimination, which are not? In the cases of price discrimination, identify the customers with high price elasticity demand and those with low. Damaged merchandise is marked down. That's not price discrimination. That's just different products. Like you have damaged merchandise and you have new merchandise, so it's not actually a case of price discrimination. Restaurants have senior citizen discounts. This is, yes, and we would say that the seniors have more inelastic demand. They are on the lower end of that demand curve. The idea here is that they're farther down. They're less willing to pay that very high price. And so we would say everyone else, boy, my handwriting's bad today, is more elastic. And they're the people who are willing to pay the higher price up there on the demand curve. Food manufacturers place discount coupons for their merchandise and newspapers. This is another example, actually, of price discrimination. Yes, and the people who have the more inelastic are the coupon cutters, or those are the people, coupon cutters are more inelastic. And for them, basically, this is setting them a lower price because they're farther down that demand curve. They're allowing these customers who are lower on the demand curve, who would not otherwise obtain the product in a single price monopoly, they're able to obtain the product. And so the coupon cutters are the more inelastic group. And then everyone else is the same kind of as what we just said. Everyone else is more elastic. Airline tickets cost more during the summer peak flying season. That's not price discrimination. That's just supply and demand, right? That's just plain old supply and demand. There's more demand, so therefore the prices are higher. The last question on here is actually the first free response prep question. I think it's more valuable for you to take a look at this question than it is actually the second one. So I'm going to do this one in the practice problem set. Draw a correctly labeled graph showing a monopoly practicing perfect price discrimination. On your graph, identify the profit and what does consumer surplus equal in this case? Explain. So I'm actually going to answer this part first. And the answer here is CS does not exist because all consumers pay their maximum price. They all pay what they're willing actually to pay. So we would say that there is no consumer surplus in that circumstance. But we can go ahead and draw the graph and show the profit, and we would say price and quantity, and this is going to be a perfectly price discriminating monopoly. So demand is equal to marginal revenue here. Then we've got a marginal cost curve. We know that the firm's going to produce where MR equals MC, and it does tell us actually that they're earning a profit. So I'm going to drop down QF right here, and I'm going to include a profit, nice big fat profit here, with ATC being below at that QF. It's got to be below what that lowest price that they would charge would be. And so here, the area of profit is going to vary. The per unit amount is going to vary, but it's going to start at the bottom where that average cost is, and it goes up to that quantity because it's not going to go over because we actually stopped selling QF. We're not producing any more units, so that's why it goes directly up. And then because they're actually obtaining all of these prices, we would say that like the first unit gives them like this much profit per unit, right? A whole lot. And the average cost is there. The second unit, right? A whole lot of profit. This third unit, a whole lot of profit. Fourth unit, all the way down to that average cost. So what we're just doing here is kind of shading in this whole area. And that area is what refers to the profit rectangle. So we know that the prices just for, whoops, not quite that big. The prices start here, actually. They start here and they go up the demand curve. So the price the firm charges kind of ranges from here all the way to here. Again, they don't go all the way down to the average total cost curve. You saw that I made that mistake. They just stop here. Let's take a look at some of these multiple choice questions. So the first question says, which of the following characteristics is necessary in order for a firm to price discriminate? And the first is not, the second's not, the third's not. Some control over the price. They have to be able to like pick different prices. So we'd say D for this one. That's a prerequisite. Price discrimination is, I don't know what that, no. Practice limited movie theaters, no. Can lead to increased efficiency. Yes, it can. We've talked about how it can eliminate the deadweight loss, although obviously the consequence of eliminating all consumer surplus. 3 says, with perfect price discrimination, consumer surplus, hey, it's eliminated. It equals 0. We just answered that actually in the explanation. The fourth question I don't care about. We're not going to include that in any quizzes. The techniques that actually they use is not really something that's covered in an AP microeconomics class. A price discriminating monopolist will charge a higher price to consumers with, and this is again kind of going back to that idea of if you have marginal cost and you have marginal revenue equals demand, well, they're going to produce this quantity, and that's the lowest price. And we know that as you move up a demand curve, it becomes more elastic. And as you move down, it becomes more inelastic. So we would say that the charge a higher price, the people up here are going to be the most elastic. So more inelastic, no, less inelastic. So we're going to say B for that one. That's a weird way to say that. They could just say more elastic, but they like making it hard on us. So hopefully this helps you with understanding price discrimination a little bit. I'll see you next time.